So, how do you pass on financial success without accidentally creating weakness? It's honestly one of the hardest questions any family faces when they think about the future, and in this explainer, we're going to tackle it head-on.
This right here, this is the question, isn't it? It's the one that keeps successful people up at night, and for good reason. The stakes are unbelievably high. You know, if you get this right, you can set up future generations for success. But if you get it wrong, the very money that was meant to provide security can end up doing the exact opposite.
And you can see just how high those stakes are. Money itself, it's just a tool, but it can lead down two totally opposite paths. One path builds responsibility, the other builds dependence. One creates real earned confidence, while the other breeds a kind of dangerous complacency. The key takeaway? It's not about the money. It's about the mindset that you build around it.
All right, so to navigate this, we're going to break it down into 4 key ideas. First, we'll dive into what the entitlement trap really is. Then, we'll get into the solutions, the power of earning, not just receiving, why you need to involve kids to build wisdom, and finally, why character always has to come before capital.
Okay, so first things first. Before we can avoid the trap, we have to know what it looks like, and maybe more importantly, where it comes from. And honestly, it's often not what you might think.
Now, this is the most crucial thing to get. Entitlement isn't about having money. Not at all. It's a mindset. It's this deep-seated belief that effort is kind of optional, that good outcomes are just guaranteed, and that the money well will never run dry. It's a complete misunderstanding of how the world actually works.
Think about it like a chain. In a healthy life, your effort leads to taking responsibility, which means you own the consequences, the good and the bad. That's how we grow up. Well, entitlement comes in and just shatters those links. And when that chain breaks, the whole foundation for maturity starts to crumble.
And here's the really tricky part. Where does this breakdown even start? It almost always begins with love. I mean, parents want to give their kids comfort, they want to protect them, but these incredible intentions can lead to actions that do the exact opposite, like removing every single struggle or shielding them from any negative consequences.
And this gets to a really deep truth about being human. You know, psychologists have talked about this for ages. A toddler has to struggle a bit to learn independence. We need that friction, that little bit of challenge to grow. So when we clear every single obstacle out of our kids' way, we're accidentally taking away the very things that build resilience, wisdom, and good judgment.
Okay, so that's the problem. How do we even begin to fix it? Well, the first step is a really powerful shift in focus. We have to move away from a culture of simply receiving and towards a culture of earning.
You know, this quote from David Green, the founder of Hobby Lobby, just nails it. This isn't about being mean or harsh. It's about being clear. It creates a direct line between making a contribution and getting a reward. It teaches a fundamental lesson. Resources come from creating value. They're not a birthright.
And this breaks down into a really simple 3-step cycle that anyone can use. It starts with contribution, just showing up and putting in the work. That effort leads to creating value, making something better or solving a problem. And that is what leads to the reward. Suddenly, money isn't some abstract thing. It's tangible.
Now, part of earning is also learning what happens when you mess up. Letting a kid feel the small, natural sting of a bad financial choice, like, say, blowing all their money and then not being able to buy something they really want, that is so much more powerful than any lecture you could ever give. It's not punishment. It's just reality.
All right, the second piece of the solution is all about pulling back the curtain. Think about it. You can't develop a realistic view of money if you're never actually allowed to see how it works behind the scenes.
So many families treat finances like a state secret, but that just makes it mysterious and weird, and kids will fill in the blanks with pure fantasy. But when you're transparent, you build realism. They start to understand what things cost, the trade-offs you have to make, and that realism, that's the foundation of responsibility.
So what does this involvement actually look like? Well, it can be super simple. It can be talking about trade-offs at the grocery store, or explaining why the family is saving up for a big vacation instead of spending money now. And some really cool research from places like Fidelity Charitable shows it can even mean involving them in family giving. Asking them what they care about and letting them have a say.
This is such a critical idea. Kids are experts at seeing the visible rewards, the nice house, the vacations, all that stuff. But if that's all they see, they just assume it happens automatically. We have to show them the invisible work that goes on underneath. They need to see the budgeting meetings, the patient investing, the times you say no to something now for a bigger yes later. They have to get that the lifestyle isn't the starting line, it's the finish line of a long, disciplined race.
And that brings us to our final and honestly, our most important point. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about teaching kids how to balance a checkbook. It's about anchoring their sense of self in something much, much stronger than money.
This might be the single most toxic unspoken lesson a kid can absorb, that their personal worth is tied to their family's net worth. The second a child's identity gets wrapped up in wealth, entitlement isn't just a possibility, it's practically a certainty. We have to fight against this and actively teach them that who they are, their character, is so much more important than what they have.
And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. The data on this is just crystal clear. A big survey by Merrill Lynch asked thousands of people what defines a life well lived. The answers speak for themselves. Almost everyone, 94%, said loving relationships. 75% said making a positive impact. And wealth? Only 10%. That gives us a powerful, objective anchor for these conversations.
And this really gets to the heart of it all. The legacy that truly lasts isn't financial, it's ethical. It's sometimes called an ethical will. It's the values, the stories, the lessons you pass down. Those are the kinds of assets that never run out. In fact, they grow with every generation.
So, as we wrap all this up, what's a healthy way for money to feel? It should feel useful, like a tool you can use to build things. It should feel powerful, like a way to create positive change. And so importantly, it has to feel limited, a finite resource you have to respect and manage wisely.
And if you take away just one thing from our time together, let it be this. The true purpose of a family legacy isn't to build a wall around your kids to protect them from every struggle. That just creates weakness. The real goal is to prepare them, to build strong, capable people who are ready for whatever challenges life throws their way.
So in the end, it's all about shifting our focus. The goal isn't to raise children who can simply inherit wealth. The goal is to raise adults who have the wisdom and the character to handle it wisely. So the real question we're left with isn't what you're going to give them, but how you're going to prepare them.
Thanks so much for joining me next time. Next time, we're going to get really practical and dive into a guide for building real financial literacy right at home. Hope to see you then.